Why have I got all my D&D stuff out today? Because today is the day that we talk about Groo and Dungeons & Dragons. Hi, I'm Darren, these are my hands, and this is GrooTube, where we appreciate the art of Aragonés. You know, lately, we have been on a bit of a art of Aragonés in the sense of Sergio's characters in his art. Obviously, Sergio is the best and fastest cartoonist in the world. Nobody's going to argue that on this channel. But Sergio is also a wonderful storyteller, and as part of that, he's a great character developer. I'm not saying he necessarily has good character himself, but he is able to create characters for his stories with lots of depth, lots of interest, and so we're going to continue to look at Sergio's characters, and we're going to relate it to Dungeons & Dragons. So I started playing Dungeons & Dragons back in the early 80s with the Red Box Basic set, and I soon advanced to the Blue Box Expert set. I had lots of fun building dungeons, rolling characters, and role-playing D&D games with my friends. My good buddy Ron became our dungeon master. He picked up the advanced D&D books, and we just continued going on from there. For those of you who may not be intimately familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, let me tell you a little bit about how a character is played in Dungeons & Dragons. When you create a character, it is comprised of many things. You'll pick a race for your character. Maybe you'll be a human. Maybe you'll be a dwarf. Maybe you'll be an elf. Those various races give you certain abilities in the game. You'll also choose a class. Maybe you'll be a fighter. Maybe you'll be a magic user. Maybe you'll be a thief. These classes give you other abilities, other ways that you can play your character in the game, strengths and weaknesses. The third thing that you'll probably choose when making a character for Dungeons & Dragons is your alignment, and that's where we're going to focus on things today. You can think of your alignment as an axis between good and evil, or perhaps sacrificial, self-sacrifice, and self-interest, selfishness. The other axis is the lawful, chaotic axis, whether you follow the rules or whether you just break the rules to suit whatever you need to do. Your character can be lawful, can be chaotic somewhere on the spectrum. Your character can be good, or your character can be evil somewhere along this spectrum. And your alignment in Dungeons & Dragons will inform how you role-play your character, kind of the motivations behind the actions that your character takes. The lawful good character plays by the rules and does what is good. They do good, and they do it the right way. The chaotic good player is also concerned with doing good, but will take whatever means necessary to achieve that good. So the chaotic good player is more the ends justify the means type player. Down over here, we have the lawful evil player. This player also plays by the rules. They like to see the rules enforced, but they use the rules for their own gain. They are the legally selfish type player. That's their motivation in the game. And then over in this corner, chaotic evil. They're just doing whatever they want to do for their own self-interest and maybe just to mess up the other players as they go. Some people call the chaotic evil player the fun-loving criminal. And then filling the gaps between these four corners are the neutral good player, the lawful neutral player, the chaotic neutral player, the neutral evil player, and the true neutral player. And today, we're going to place characters from Sergio Aragonés Groo the Wanderer series into this alignment grid. So let me make some space on the table here. All right, I've got a typical Dungeons & Dragons character alignment grid right here. How are we going to fill it up? That's the first question that we have to answer today. What Groo characters are we going to pull from to place into our grid here? Well, we could just take the entire catalog of Groo characters and try to figure out who best fits into each spot on the grid, but that seems like it'd be really difficult and time-consuming to do. So what I want to do is pick a smaller set of characters from some sort of established group to place in our grid. My first thought was the Friends and Foes series of comics from 2015? 2015. So let's look at who we would have to place into the grid here. Captain Ahax, Granny Groo, Arba and Decarbra, Arcadio the Hero. When did he start being called Arcadio the Hero as his full and always used name? Arcadio, that'll do. Gruella, the Sage, Chakal, Weaver and Scribe, maybe a little bit self-indulgent? They're good characters. Palindrum, Taranto, Tarantula, the Minstrel, and Kaylee. Well, this is a good place to start, but I'm concerned that there's 12 characters, and there's some oddballs in there, and there's at least one character that I think should be in the list that's missing. Weaver and Scribe, maybe they don't quite deserve to be in the grid if we're narrowing it down to just 9 Groo characters. I don't know, that's my opinion. Kaylee, same thing there. And we're missing Rufferto as a character on his own. I don't think that I can do one of these grids without putting Rufferto on the grid. So Friends and Foes, first thought, but perhaps not what I'm going to go with today. So my next thought, what about those great PVC Groo figurines? Even though I don't have them, and don't worry, I'll be okay without owning those figurines. Maybe. They still could be a really good starting place for filling out our D&D alignment grid for Groo. This set of figures includes the Sage, Decarbra and Arba, Groo, Rufferto, good stuff, Taranto, Minstrel, and Chakal. Really, not a bad group to throw into that grid, except for 2 things. Arba and Decarbra probably should be included as one, but even if we didn't do that, we've only got 8 characters to try to cram into the D&D alignment grid, and that's just not enough. How about these Dark Horse minifigures from way back in the day? Not only are they super cool, but they're like totally made for playing with D&D. If we use these figures as our base list for our D&D alignment chart, we'd have Groo, Rufferto, Chakal, Sage, Arcadio, Minstrel, the Witch of Con, Taranto, Gruella, Grativo, we'd have some maidens and guards, that big dragon, Lil Groo, we'd even have Sergio. So lots to choose from, but still a few oddballs. I don't know that I'd want to include the Witch of Con. The title maidens and guards really shouldn't be in there. Sergio would be neat. I don't know, is he chaotic good? Maybe just chaotic neutral? It's hard to tell sometimes. And that big old dragon, super cool, but maybe not quite what we're looking for in this alignment grid. And I don't have access to them all, so there's a bit of a problem with that too. But I've got an idea. Here's my plan. I am going to make my own list of the top 9 Groo characters that need to be on this D&D alignment grid, and then I'm going to place them into the grid. So, here's my list. Feel free to let me know where I've erred. I would be slain if I did not include Groo on this list, so Groo is number 1 on the list. Number 2 is Rufferto. I've got to include that doggy as well. The Sage, the Minstrel, Chakal. I don't think many people would argue with me that it is important to include all of those characters in my list of 9 most important characters to include on this alignment chart. And the last 4 that I'm going to put on the chart, Gruella, Granny Groo, Arcadio, and Taranto. And how do you like that? My 9 choices happen to be the first 9 cards in the Wildstorm Groo trading card series. So, it must mean that's the right thing to do. All right, are you ready to see where I'm going to put these characters on the grid? Let's start with Gruella. Queen Gruella. Does she fit on the lawful side of the chart? Does she fit on the chaotic side of the chart? Is she good? Is she evil? Where does she go? I think it makes good sense to put the legally selfish Queen Gruella right here in the lawful evil corner of our alignment grid. She's a queen. She wants you to play by the rules. Yeah, they're her rules, but you better play by the rules so that she can have whatever she wants. And quite often, that's to be an only child by killing her brother Groo. Next up, I'd like to place Taranto on the grid. Does he belong way up here on the good side of the grid? No. He belongs down here on the evil side of the grid. Taranto is not a selfless guy. He is a selfish guy. And while he is not beholden to the rules, I don't see him as a particularly chaotic kind of guy. He's just immorally indifferent, and he belongs in the neutral evil square of the grid. How about Arcadio, the hero? Is he good? Is he evil? Is he lawful? Is he chaotic? When I think of Arcadio, I think of a guy who kind of follows the rules. Think of how he's always playing the role that he needs to play, purifying himself ritually, spiritually before heading into battle. He's not evil, but he's not good either. Arcadio, to me, is lawful neutral. He's the hero for hire. Pay me, or at the very least, pay my ego. So let's put Arcadio in the lawful neutral square. Next up, Granny Groo. Maybe Granny is easy for you to place on the alignment grid. I'm actually going to place Granny over here on the chaotic side of the grid, because Granny always is making up her own rules. You never know what to expect from Granny, and she's always looking out for herself. Granny Groo is chaotic, evil. Sometimes I think she just likes to torture Groo for the fun of it. What do you think of that choice? Next up, I present to you Chacal. Wise, strong, beautiful, always fighting for the marginalized, for the weak, for the vulnerable. There's no doubt that Chacal is good. She is selfless. She always does what's right, and she does it the right way. The model citizen, Chacal, lawful good. Now we've got the minstrel. What to do with the minstrel? Does he follow rules? Does he bust the rules? Is he evil? Is he good? Is he somewhere in the middle? It's my contention that when we look at the minstrel's life on the whole, that we see a good person. How does he behave? He wanders, following and praising Arcadio, hanging out with Groo, and the man is a little bit unhinged. So I'm going to put minstrel in the chaotic good square. He definitely is well-intentioned, but you just never know what's going to go on when minstrel's around. We are left with Rufferto, Sage, and Groo. What to do, what to do. In actuality, I don't think it's that difficult to place these three in the 3 spots that we've got left. Let's look at the Sage. Is he good? Is he evil? Is he lawful? Is he chaotic? The Sage is a wise man in that he can be whatever the situation calls for. He's not beholden to the rules, and while he's not a selfish man, he's not always a purely good man. The sage is truly neutral. Groo, he has a heart as big as his nose sometimes. And there's no doubt that as the decades have rolled on, his goodness has shone more and more. Yet, it is not always this mendicant's heart that leads him. Quite often, it is his gut. It is his passion. It is his desire for what he wants. A fray, some cheese dip. Unfortunately, I cannot place Groo in the good category. He's not evil. He is neutral. And he certainly is chaotic. His lack of brains prevents him from being anything but. Groo the Wanderer. Chaotic neutral. And that means that Rufferto is neutral good. He's a do-gooder. He's loyal. He makes Groo a better person. He is good. And that's where our doggo belongs. Neutral good. So, what do you think of that, Groo fans? The Groo the Wanderer Dungeons and Dragons Alignment Grid. I'm sure you've got many thoughts, many comments, and perhaps even some disagreements with me, and I welcome those. This has been a really fun exercise. I'm glad that I've been able to get these dark horse figures out and show them to you a little bit. I hope that you've had fun as we've talked about Sergio's various characters. Let me know if you would have chose somebody else to be on this grid and where you would have placed them. Give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed and that you've clicked the bell for notifications, and I will see you soon for another GrooTube. See you later, friends. Granny, you're bad. Arcadio, are you really a hero? Arba and Decabra, I guess I'm sorry I didn't include you. Kaylee, you're a story for another time. Palindrum, maybe you could have taken the place of Taranto. And Chakal, we always knew that you'd end up lawful good.